BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Democrats have welcomed the US Supreme Court's decision to reject the latest challenge to the law known as Obamacare. Republican-led states tried to overturn the Affordable Care Act, which provides health insurance for more than 30 million people. But judges ruled that the litigants lacked the legal standing to bring the case. Here's our North America correspondent, David Willis.
This is the third time in just over a decade that the US Supreme Court, the highest court in the land here in the United States, has been called upon to consider a challenge to the Affordable Care Act. It's the third time the court has rejected such a challenge, added to which the majorities on the 9-member court are getting larger in its favor, despite Donald Trump having appointed more conservative judges. The upshot of all this is that it seems the Affordable Care Act is here to stay, despite the considerable opposition that Republicans continue to harbour for it.
President Biden has signed a bill creating a public holiday to commemorate the end of slavery in the United States. Mr. Biden called the move one of the greatest honours of his presidency. He signed the legislation 2 days before the holiday itself, known as Juneteenth, describing it as momentous.
This is a really important moment in our history. By making Juneteenth a federal holiday, all Americans can feel the power of this day and learn from our history and celebrate progress and grapple with the distance we've come, but the distance we have to travel.
The 19th of June celebrates the emancipation of the last enslaved African Americans in 1865. The former president of Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo, has returned home after nearly a decade overseas, during which he was cleared of crimes against humanity. He told a press conference he was glad to be back in his home country. His refusal to step down after losing an election in 2010 sparked a brief civil war in which 3,000 people died. France has hosted a donor conference that aimed to help Lebanon's armed forces survive the country's increasingly dire economic crisis. The gathering included European states, the US, Russia and some Gulf Arab nations. Here's Alan Johnston.
All of Lebanon is suffering as the nation's economy collapses, and the army is no exception. Its chief told the donor conference that the situation was increasingly untenable. The slashing of the value of wages has forced some soldiers to seek extra jobs or leave the military altogether. Countries attending the conference were asked to help supply the army with food, fuel, medical supplies and equipment.
BBC News. The Israeli military has launched airstrikes on the Gaza Strip for the second time in 3 nights. The Israeli Defense Forces said they'd struck military compounds and a rocket launch site belonging to the militant group Hamas. They said the strikes were in retaliation for the launching of incendiary balloons towards southern Israel. Gunmen have abducted a number of students and teachers from a school in Kebbi State in northwest Nigeria. The federal government college in Yauri is a boarding school for both boys and girls. It's the latest in a series of mass abductions at schools and colleges. A Mexican journalist who specialized in crime news has been killed in the southwestern state of Oaxaca. Gustavo Sanchez was shot by unknown gunmen while riding his motorbike with his teenage son, who escaped unharmed. Mr. Sanchez, who was the editor of a website covering police news, is the second journalist to be killed in Mexico this year. In football, there was a minute's applause during Denmark's Euro 2020 match against Belgium as a show of support for the Danish midfielder Christian Eriksen, who suffered a cardiac arrest in the same stadium earlier in the tournament. Denmark were beaten 2-1. Ukraine also beat North Macedonia 2-1, while the Netherlands defeated Austria 2-0. John Bennett was watching.
The Netherlands could and should have been out of sight by half-time against the disappointing Austria side. Memphis Depay gave them the lead from the penalty spot after just 10 minutes, but Depay went on to miss some good chances, including slicing the ball over the bar when he nearly had an open goal just before the break. He made up for it, though, midway through the second half, flicking the ball around the corner for sub Donyell Malen to chase, and he teed up Dumfries for a tap-in. A second straight win for the Netherlands, a place in the last 16, a clean sheet, and all that without having to get out of second gear.
BBC News.